Well, I'm sure if we say the word toxic masculinity, somebody may come to mind for you. Luckily, there really isn't I don't think there's any toxic masculinity in the office that we don't immediately dispel.
Sometimes because there's not a lot of masculinity, period. Oh no!
But the opposite of toxic masculinity, or what's being called a toxic man.
We got to come up with a better name for this.
Not to be confused with a toxic man.
That is a bad, confusing name that needs a rebrand right away.
Right. A toxic man, somebody who, spreads toxic masculinity. And a toxic man, the opposite of that. So we'll just say a non-toxic man. How about that? But that simply means a man who doesn't base his whole identity on rigid ideas of masculinity or dominance. Instead, an atoxic or non-toxic man treats others with respect, avoids hostility or prejudice, doesn't seek power over people, and supports equality and nonviolence.
Listen, for the last ever, men have not exactly been covering themselves in glory when it comes to some of this stuff, but in the internet age, it has been ratcheted up in the most strange, bizarre way, because people you should never take advice from are the ones out here apparently dictating the rules for what makes an alpha male, which is not a thing, and what men should be doing. Yeah. And it's people that no parent would ever want their kids to model after, giving that advice. So we've got to be real clear about what is and isn't a good thing. This toxic masculinity stuff is all egocentric, chauvinistic. Yeah. It doesn't help anybody. Specifically, it doesn't help the people that are trying to learn how to be better men. I'll tell you that much.
Well, and that's what kind of makes me question, are you trying to be a better man when you're sort of listening to the alpha male rhetoric that's out there on the internet? Or, is there a lack of male presence in your life that's kind of guiding you that way?
For me, the biggest thing when it comes to all of this stuff is they're trying to take what is ostensibly a complicated and nuanced discussion and break it down into simple rules for junior high kids, except those kids then keep trying to follow those rules at 30. And that's not what you really want out of a society.
And I think walking into a space and assuming that everybody, the default should be respect and equality. Everybody is treated with the same respect and everybody is equal in the room until somebody says something to prove you otherwise.
Exactly.
That's when you can say, oh, okay, you are not a respectable person.
Believe people until they tell you who they are.
Exactly.
Give everybody a chance.
But first. I think to just walk into a room assuming, and I think what a lot of the kind of red pill alpha male rhetoric out there does, put this default of men are better, women are less than, and it immediately creates sort of a dissonance and tension in a room if you've got, especially right now, a lot of young men entering the workforce that might have that mindset because they've been listening to podcasts and not the people in the community around them.
Yeah, and it's all fool's gold when it comes to this conversation. It looks shiny and right, but if you actually do the things that those people are telling you to do, you're not going to get any of the stuff that you're hoping to get in your life. You're going to push people away. You're going to be less effective at actually being a leader if that's a goal of yours. Also, not everybody at all times can be a leader. You might have the capacity to be a leader in this thing over here, but maybe you don't know a lot about this thing over here. It doesn't mean you should pretend to.
That right there is I feel like that is maturity, frontal lobe unlocked, where you're like, I don't know this. I don't have to pretend to know this. In fact, it might even be advantageous if I admit up front that I don't know this, and then we can find the person who does, and we can go from there. So I think it is an important one to maybe just kind of be aware of and have that conversation at home. But we've got more Coast Life coming your way. You want to go see a show? We got the Possum Point Players coming in next.